Bill. Let's get started. Let's give him a minute to get it going. Ready? Yes, sir. Good evening and welcome to the March 3rd meeting of the Loxahatchee Groves Town Council. If we have the roll call, please.
Mayor Brown.
Here.
Vice Mayor Carroll.
Here.
Councilman Goldstein.
Here.
Councilman Liang.
Here.
Councilman Rocket.
Here.
If you would stand for the pledge, remain standing for the invocation. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, again, we ask for your hand in watching over this meeting. Give us a good meeting, give us stability, give us wisdom in leading this town. We pray for those that are in that area where there's the volcano, that you would protect those and all of our soldiers serving overseas. Watch over them, we pray in your name. Amen. All right, if there are no changes to the agenda, I'll entertain a motion to accept the agenda.
I'll make that.
Okay, Ryan makes a motion, Jim seconds it. Discussion, council, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Passes 5-0. Moving to the consent agenda. Motion to accept the consent agenda. Jim makes a motion, second by Ryan. Discussion on the consent agenda. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Moving to public comments. I've got one. Marge Herzog. One up, Marge.
March Herzog, A Road. I just wanted to remind everyone that on March 5th is the workshop on Okeechobee. I don't know whether it's going to be mentioned tonight, but it's going to be at the Chamber of Commerce at 6 p.m. So if you have any input, there are 3 areas, I forget what they are. Floor area ratio, and 2 others. And also on the billing by the attorney on the consent agenda, I was wondering if the amount of money that is being billed for the B Road project is being divided equally between the 2 parties, because I noticed that the hours and the days are exactly the same, and I was wondering how are they coming up with.
I can explain it. Yes, this is part of cost recovery, and so I'm allocating the time to separate projects.
And dividing it in half.
I'm trying to be fair with them, yes. If I talk with one of them more than the other, then I can note that, but if it's just a common meeting or a common review, I'm giving them each half the cost.
Okay, because I know it must be a nightmare when you've got 3 of them that
But it's cost recovery, so I'm trying to account it so they can feel comfortable with what they're being charged.
Thank you, Mike. No presentations. Moving to committee reports. Virginia.
I'll keep it very brief tonight. Basically, the Finance and Audit Advisory Committee met on February 23rd. We reviewed the financials, however, it needs to be noted that trial balance was not included. It will be provided at the next month's meeting. So it was just an oversight. The ending balance as of January 31st, 2000.